Good morning. It is Monday, August 24th, 2026, and this is DeProgram with Ted Rall and Jamarl Thomas. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We are here Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, plus the brand new Q&A show, which occurs 12 noon, Monday, Wednesday. That part's not new, but it's Friday also, so we can call the whole thing new. You know, it's like when they do new and improved dishwashing liquid. How much do they really change? They just tweak it a little. So good morning, Robbie. Robbie West is our producer. You guys who watch us regularly are well familiar. Jamarl Thomas is going to be here, I assume. Is he still talking on his previous show?
He is. He is educating the masses, but he will make an appearance here once he is done. And speak of the devil, and he shall appear. There is a handsome, well-dressed black man has arrived.
The devil has many. The devil has many names.
It's like the devil will appear with a pleasing form. I forget the length of.
Old Scratch.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing, Jamarl?
I'm doing okay. I've had setbacks, but I'm okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
I've also lost Vanessa now.
You what?
Wait, are we live?
We're live.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
you're live.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
I thought you were about it after. I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were live. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
JT, you're the one that runs on CPT. Me and Ted don't. I mean, let's just be honest here. I just nearly
I don't
killed
know,
you.
Robbie. There could be some surprise that when you do that 23andMe someday, you might be like, I'm 99% African.
Right.
But I mean, no, seriously,
What was like Dick Cheney was related to Obama? They were like cousins or something, or distant cousins.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh.
No, there is no such thing as a homogeneous race. No, people say I am 100% whatever. No, you are not. You have got so much crap stuff in there.
No. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why I said that racism is the dumbest thing. We're all one blood. We're all mixed up. We're all mutts. And if you think that you're a racial Superman, I promise you've got Negroid in there. You've got Mongoloid in there. You probably got some Whitey in there somewhere. I mean,
it's never about race. It's about control and power. It's just,
of course it is.
These are just excuses in order to take power. Like whether you're like a bishop or pope or the church, Catholic Church, or if you are a Klansman, or if you are a terrorist in Syria. Like all of these things are just look. There are some true believers, agreed.
Yeah,
but it's just power based.
True.
I need an excuse for power. Oh, right. How about being white? Yes, white is great and fantastic. Okay,
well, I get to wear a funny hat.
There's an excuse for it. Yeah.
My parents were special, so I get to be king. That's how it is.
Yes.
Because why? Oh, because why were they special? Well, they got it from their parents. Oh, where'd they get it from?
The divine right of kings. That's where it comes from.
Obviously, because God said so. If it wasn't true, then it wouldn't have worked.
By the way, have you guys seen that story out of Foreign Affairs magazine? It's called The American, what is it? The End of America, right here, The End of the American Middle East. Iran and the Last Gasp of a Failed Order.
No, I need to read that shit. Okay, well, yeah, you want to talk about it now? We can do it right now. After all, we have our own show. We can do whatever we want. And by the way, if you're watching live on YouTube and Rumble, please go ahead and put in your comments and questions. We will answer them. Robbie will put them up. Rumble rants and super chats particularly appreciated, and subscriptions on Rumble and especially on YouTube are also very, very appreciated. All right, Jamarl, take it away.
So I did the monologue on this because I think the article misses something that. If January 6th, meaning if this article came out and January 6th was because of this article, I would have been screaming at the top of my lungs, you are doing God's work. Because the article is enraging, or at the very least it should be enraging. Just the paragraph. It says sorry for the glasses, I broke them in. I don't know where the lens is. And so the American Middle East is finished. The regional order that has prevailed since 1991 has been one of the casualties of the United States-Israeli war with Iran. The American and Israelis' failure to dislodge the regime in Tehran has proved the bankruptcy of decades of sanctions and violence, the inability of the United States to protect its Gulf allies from Iranian attacks or keep the Strait of Hormuz open has fatally undermined the core security bargain that justified its network of military bases in the region. and Israel's increasingly threatening posture and abandonment of any pretense or interest in reaching an accommodation to the Palestinians has ended Washington's decades-long mission of bringing its Arab allies and Israel together in an enduring security partnership, effectively a Jewish supremacy partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Think of what that means. Think of what that article is saying, right? It's basically making the point of saying, for decades of the energy that we put into it, the trillions of dollars that we put into this particular project, the psychopaths that came in one administration after the next, thinking about how do we secure this region? How do we dominate this region with American power? Or for that matter, how do we destroy Syria, Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, et cetera, in lieu of dominating this particular region? Think of all the terrorists that were caused when we went into Iraq, killing a million people being killed, not to mention untold as ISIS swept across the land. Think of all of the carnage that we have wrought. And for that matter, even if you just take George Bush's number, $10 trillion, you don't have to take the billions that Donald Trump spent. You don't have to take the billions that Obama spent to try to overthrow the Syrian government, which eventually happened. You don't have to take it, $10 trillion. And it all failed. Like, meaning all of that energy, all of that thought, all of that planning, all of that money, all of that negative intent that went into it, and it all failed within what, 6 months?
Spectacularly, hugely, like bigly and quickly.
Right.
I mean, all empire building exercises ultimately, and we can have that conversation with Genghis Khan, and it always does, Adolf Hitler, whatever. But it never goes tits up this fast. I mean,
right. But the question becomes the shadow. If you spend that much money, that much energy doing this, what didn't you spend the money on?
Right.
Like, you don't have healthcare, you don't have education, you don't have golden roads, you don't have cities that float on air, you don't have, high-speed rail through a tube that gets you from California to New York in 2 hours. You don't have any of that stuff.
You haven't been back to the moon. You haven't
been back to the moon. You haven't went to the Mars.
You don't do anything.
Of just how much money, time, energy, resources
wasted,
they expended that went up in smoke in 6 months. Like,
and I think of France a lot. Sorry, Robbie, but I mean, I think about France and this, how they were, they lost their big colonial uprisings that destroyed what was left of their empire, were the Algerian independence struggle and the Indochina revolt, right, that ended in 1954. By the 60s, basically, the writing was on the wall, and France was going to no longer be a colonial empire, but rather a country with post-colonial influence, which it remains to some extent. But the thing is, all these people who rebelled against the French, they did them unwittingly. Did the French what the French call la France métropolitaine, metropolitan France, real France, a favor? Because, like, while they're not maintaining supply lines and across the planet and trying to dominate people and getting their asses kicked in the bargain, they were able to start rebuilding from World War II, building their own domestic industry, creating a safety net. That safety net didn't exist in the 40s, 50s, 60s. The French safety net that we know now was built largely beginning in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when they stopped being a colonial power. It's I mean, this is we're going through that now, except the problem is that we haven't had our battle of Dien Bien Phu. We have not acknowledged that we've been defeated. I mean, we have Trump and his people still claiming online this morning that they've been, that Iran has lost. They've had their military has been close to 100% degraded. That's a quote from the president this morning. I don't know if they believe any of this. I mean, part of lying is that you start to believe your own lies, and that's my actual real concern. Is that Trump and the Republicans, on a whole host of issues, they really, I think, they're so siloed now. They have no way of knowing what's really happening. And
it's not just the Republicans though. The Democrats are right in there with them, beating that war drum just as much. Point in case, over the weekend, I don't know if y'all saw this. Trump unleashed. He's running out of bombs and missiles, but he still has access to Truth Social, so he's able to type furiously. And so,
read the cage.
And Operation Type Keyboard Fury.
Yeah, exactly. So he just dropped this scathing attack against Thomas Massey and Tucker Carlson, and just basically the populist right at large, telling them low IQ, losers, everything else, for asking the same questions that you, JT, just now asked. What have we, as the American people, what have we got out of this? And then immediately following up on it, and this pissed off a lot of the diehard Trumpers here in Montana that I know, who are ranchers, to combat rising prices because of the failed war that Trump has launched unconstitutionally. He's going to start importing millions of tons of foreign beef
from Argentina.
So if this is America,
well, and that's not a coincidence. That's his little butt buddy Malay,
of course.
Mm-hmm.
And
but his argument was effectively, they're getting beat there, and it's like all of these ranchers are out of their fucking work. Are you serious?
Yeah, because they're.
Yeah, the cattle industry doesn't have high margins. They can't afford this. Yeah.
No, of course not. And there's no help for them. But meanwhile, though,
why should they? I don't care. I mean, as an American, okay, this is where my nationalist side comes in. If the American beef industry were rolling in profits, I still don't want those profits diminished. Those are American businesses.
Exactly. And let's just me and Kids were talking about this over the whole lettuce thing about all the contaminated lettuce coming in from Mexico.
Right.
Why are we importing Mexican lettuce? We're perfectly capable of growing ourselves, not irrigating it with sewer water. I mean, this is not a radical concept.
Well, actually, I think the United States is not currently able to grow enough lettuce to support the demand in this country.
Well, of course not.
Think about it. It doesn't grow in most of the country.
Well, it's because we've outsourced it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that we have this huge continental country. We are able to feed ourselves. That's one thing we can still do if we actually tried. But the point that I'm trying to make is that in less than a week, we hit $40 trillion in debt. Our president attacked the agriculture industry that every person that lives in the United States, you eat.
Yes.
That attacks an industry that fundamentally is vital to the national security, and then attacks the
which, by the way, will only drive prices up in the long run if cattlemen start to go out of business.
Yeah, of course.
You've seen those episodes in the past, not that long ago, where beef prices were too low, and the cattlemen end up shooting thousands of head on the side of the road, and it's like they have to.
Yeah, that's what you're able to do, and it's just. And my question is, we have all this stuff going. Where's the anti-war left who's willing to reach across the aisle and say, listen, I can disagree with y'all on abortion and guns and this other stuff, but this one thing, though, we can work together.
Where you mean the thing?
Well, you can't say where, on the right, as a righty, Robbie, you can't say where's the anti-war left. It has to be both sides who get together. It can't be like, where are you guys? Where are you guys? It's like you both have to step over and start talking. And by the way, this brings us kind of ironically. I mean, okay, there's discussion of Hakeem Jeffries secretly met with Jared Kushner. The Democrats, liberals, particularly progressives, are highly displeased, but even mainline corporatist Democrats are displeased. It's a bad look, yes. And I guess the defense here, not that Hakeem Jeffries is eloquent enough to make it, apparently, would be like, listen, the American people are supposed to, they want us to work together whenever possible. That's what we're trying to do. Remember when Democrats and Republicans used to have bipartisan legislation? We're just thinking maybe we could do that. He can't even articulate that because that's not what this is about. This is about secret grifting behind the scenes, and the American people know it finally. But I mean, the point is that, like, I don't think the corporate Democrats and the corporate Republicans can work together in the same way that the far left and the far right could.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The invitation's open. If you're a lefty, if you have a podcast, if you need a perspective from the right, call me.
Yeah, and vice versa. vice versa, right wingers always welcome to come over and talk to us here.
I guess
As Robbie knows, the water's fine, right?
I guess my thing is there should be rage. Like when I'm relaying that story, I experienced that as rage, like a deep seated. Because from my point of view, you think of there's no consequence for it. Like that is a failure on a massive fucking level. They've spent trillions of dollars constructing this huge edifice all throughout the Middle East, all for it to fall apart when they launch a criminal war that started with the murder of hundreds of kids. Like, and that doesn't even count like the Bush wars, right? Where there's no consequence for that. Obama's drone killing, or for that matter, the knocking over of Libya. And you can even say his hand in knocking over Syria. All of it. It's like I'm so angry, just throwing down my microphone. All of it for naught.
Yeah.
And no consequence. Like even in the article, he didn't write it like people should go to jail for this.
Foreign policy would not. His editor would never have published something like that. They don't do that, right? I mean, it's all analysis. And look, the reason I think it's also super interesting when foreign policy publishes something like that, it's notable because that's really mainstream Beltway foreign, thinking. That's where the smart insiders are at, right? That's where so if they're saying something like that, I mean, that means that, you can ignore what the president is saying because behind the scenes, nobody really is backing that up. And I think probably even behind the scenes in the Situation Room, he's being told the truth and choosing to disregard it.
I don't know. I mean,
maybe not. He didn't really hire people to do that, right? But
for example, the article that just came out by Axios and CNN was quoting facts that didn't exist. They were effectively trying to make the argument that ships were going through the Strait of Hormuz through the U.S. Area. And they said something about Kepler. Well, when you looked at Kepler, it made it very clear that any ship that was going through, like 80, 90% was going through the Iranian side, not the U.S. side. And Iran was still firing at ships going through that side. So it's like, okay, well, why are you doing that? Why are you putting that story out? You're putting that story out to manipulate markets.
Yes.
And the catch, what does the president know? Is this coming from the top down, or is this trying to influence the point of view of the president, making him think that he has a stronger hand than what he actually has? Like I don't know what he knows. That's the rub.
Nobody, right, and that's like impossible to know. Look, I'm glad you brought this.
The Hakeem Jeffries thing. I guess my thing is it's a pod on both houses. You're right. I think it's a grift, and I don't know if they can work together because they've spent, I don't know, the last 8 years making everything about Trump. Now, how do you work with the devil?
Right. I mean, you can't be seen that way. I mean, like at the very same time that Trump is online and all his allies are, blasting you as traitors, anti-American, pro-Islamist, and all this stuff. I mean, it's like, I guess if I were Jeffries, I wouldn't have had this meeting. But I mean, if I did, I think I would have been like, listen, Jared, you're lovely, but there's nothing we can do until your guys stop, knock it off with the name calling. Like we can't do it. We're not going to be able to.
The Chuck Schumer Palestinian, for God's sake.
Well, also, I'm not talking about the corporate Democrats like the Hakeem Jeffries, the AOCs, the Bernie Sanders. Those people are frauds. They're fakes. They have shown who they are. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about just,
lefties.
Yeah, I mean, just honest to God lefties on the street, like whether you're an influential podcaster, if you are someone who's able to at least articulate in a better way than what I am, how this is not a good thing, what we're doing, and then they see that this out there rebellion is going on the west, that's going on the right, to the point
rebellion on the left too. That's what the DSA stuff is.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, do you see a future where DSA people will reach across to the Tucker Carlsons or the Marjorie Taylor Greens, galvanize the respective followers on either side, say, this is what we need to work on. Let's work together and burn this thing down. That's what I'm talking about.
Theoretically possible, but it's hard and it's unlikely, right? I mean, 120 years ago, populism was the Midwest populism of Robert La Follette and Minnesota, and the sewer socialists and people in Milwaukee, and all those people that they were, why they were called that, right? Because they fixed the sewers, and like all that stuff. There was definitely Huey Long is perhaps the ultimate embodiment of that, right? Where he really did graft the populist left to the populist right, and put it all together. So there's elements of socialism and nationalism, but not in a Nazi way. But
and he got shot for his trouble.
Well, yeah, because he was really dangerous to the powers that be. He really showed that we could live in a different world. Huey Long was a great man, and a complicated man, but great. And I mean, it is theoretically possible. But for example, every side's always waiting for the other side to make the overture, kind of like you just did. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, I'm waiting for my call from Tucker Carlson and MTG, who are like scheming on this new political movement / party. Well, okay, maybe it's not Ted Rall who gets the call. Maybe it's not Jamarl Thomas. But I hope you guys are reaching out to some lefties, to talk. I don't get the sense that they are, though.
Well, I mean, he's had Chink Uger. I don't know if you consider him a lefty or not. I don't know what
he's
he is.
Fake.
No,
he's to the right of AOC.
You think so? I mean, it kind of depends. I think
it does kind of depend. But he's basically where the Center for American Progress was, let's say 15 years ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he's basically he's a progressive, old school progressive Democrat. But he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Yes.
But to your point, Ted, if you watch Tucker's show, you would know that Tucker's had a crap ton of lefties on, to the point where Trump is now calling Tucker a commie. So to say that they're not reaching out is not accurate.
He hasn't had hardcore lefties, but okay.
I don't even know what that means.
I mean, I would accept Jake as a lefty from the standpoint of Tucker. I mean, if he's if Tucker is saying, okay, who's on the left, and he's looking at TYT, well, TYT is considered a lefty network. I would call them Democratic adjacent, but whatever.
Well, let's put it this way: they're not as far left as people like MTG are, right?
Yes, true.
And if you really want that alliance that alliance isn't going to work with people who are Democratic adjacent, because I don't think Tucker Carlson or MTG are Republican adjacent anymore.
Oh, nowhere near.
So they're now adrift. So you need people who are similarly adrift on the left.
You just need enough people to create a political coalition that can undermine, or at the
very
least, the current political coalition that is in from the standpoint of Democrats. Meaning, third-way Democrats still hold the party, but I think most of the public is somewhere else. You need somewhere for those people to go.
That's true. I would build if it were me, I'd build this coalition from the outside in, far left, far right, and then move in and get as many more moderate types as possible to join. But I would not start by compromising against yourself, because you have to have clear principles. And one of the things I've always admired about people who are truly right wingers is they have they believe in stuff. That's not true about people in the middle, in the mushy middle. They don't believe in anything other than they would like to sit in committee hearings and for hours for some reason.
Yeah.
And collect envelopes full of cash.
But see, that has been the mainstay of our politics for God knows how long. And I think it seems like we're building a new center. I could be wrong on this, but the fact that the DSA is getting in at all, I mean, could this have happened 6 years ago? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, and also, I think we don't want to declare victory too early. I mean, DSA right now is in the infancy of this attempted takeover of the Democratic Party. It is where the Tea Party was in 2011. It is not where MAGA is today in the Republican Party. It's not, the takeover has not taken place yet.
Well, I don't even know if it would be the DSA. I just think something
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even have to be the DSA. I just mean there's the way that people are looking at corporate Democrats. It's like swamp moss. It's like, would you prefer corporate Democrat or herpes? oh man,
I've got the herpes.
why are you giving me this hard choice? Right, right. Like
Yeah, you can treat herpes with Valtrex. Yeah.
That's what I'm about to say. No, there's a cure for one of these things. The other one, not so much.
Not a cure, but there's a treatment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Either way, if you're able to arrest it, it's fine. I guess that what I'd like to see, and I'll go away after this. I'd really love to see the Democratic Socialists of America reach out to people like me on the right side. Listen, we disagree on a lot, but
It's too early for them.
But we can agree. Well, it better wake up because the elections are coming up.
They can't. No, it's too. This is right now. DSA is. It's sorry. It just can't. I would be the first to advise them not to do that yet. It'd be like you guys need to find some solid footing first.
Even if you get a situation where there's an agreement of sorts between a group, let's say a new party forms, and they say, look, we believe in Medicare for all, we believe in Social Security, we believe in strong borders from the standpoint of immigration, we believe in kicking out immigrants, we believe in guns, etc. And you have a very basic platform of things that they say, we're going to go to the mat to get these 4 items accomplished. Everything else matters less. Mm-hmm. This is what we're going to do. You evaluate us on that. That may work. I mean, like at that point, you're talking about the tip of a spear where you're galvanizing the public around getting stuff done, as opposed to just.
But you got to be. We live in a brand political-based political environment. So until the DSA brand is well understood across the nation, which it is not, it's not in a position to cut deals like that yet.
There's one issue that you can, Ted, and you've made this case. And I don't think that you realize what you just now said. The issue that could unite everyone is do not merge the American military with Israel's military, and get Israel out of our government. That's the one place.
Oh, there's a lot of other issues. Protecting American workers.
But you're looking for one issue because you got to keep it simple. That's the one issue. Do not merge the American military with the IDF. That one thing, that one issue, that one case, and the Democrats are uniquely positioned for it because y'all don't have a kufi. Y'all don't have evangelicals who are. So what?
I would say you take 3 issues. Like meaning if we're talking about the merger of the left and the right, and you talk because basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, okay, we need a cross section of America to supplant whatever the hell is going on from the Democrats and the Republicans because they only have 30%. We need a cross section, and so it's like, okay, well, what does the American public care about? I think Ted was right once before. We talked about having a basically plebiscite of sorts. What do you care about as the American public? These are your top 3. Okay, we're going to do the top 3. I would even go further and say, okay, well, do a cross section between the left and the right and try to get those issues in ways that they don't necessarily eat each other. They may not get exactly what they want, but they move the ball forward, and they move the ball forward in the way that the American public can effectively back, especially if they're serious about these are the things that we're going to do if you put us in office. That's not necessarily a DSA thing. That's just the American public trying to make a different choice in regards to supplant the current political hierarchy. I mean, but that's hard. Either way you look at it, they've gamed the system so much where it's very difficult to start a new political party. If you were in like the UK or Germany, you could just, Ted Jamarl Robbie party. Just go off to the races.
True.
True. A schizophrenic political party, that would be wild.
Wow.
Totally. It would be, 3-headed monster.
But what is schizophrenic about a political? Like, why is it that when Democrats say, okay, in order to be a Democrat, you have to have all of these items?
Yeah.
It's random.
Which, by the way, are often in conflict, right? I mean,
it's random.
Liberals are old-fashioned liberals were supposedly pro-life in that they were anti-war, but they were pro-abortion, and anti-capital punishment. The converse is true on the right. I mean, there's internal contradictions in any political platform, right? Always.
That's because of branding. They're always taught, the other person, that's on the other team, that's wearing the other jersey. That's not so much have a political disagreement with. That person's an enemy, and that person needs to be ground down. That person needs to be broken and destroyed because if they get elected, they're going to put you in gulags, or they're going to exile you to Barrow, Alaska, and you'll never see the sun again. That's what it is.
I think the biggest mistake that we've ever made was turning politics into competition as opposed to cooperation.
Agreed.
Because it escalates. Wars escalate. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the war just stays at water's edge. Inevitably, somebody's going to say, How do I go beyond the typical boundary that is there? And then the other side is going to notice and say, hey, that guy went beyond the boundary. Now I need to go beyond the boundary.
It's all Alexander Hamilton's fault. He made all this shit happen. Okay, so let's talk. Let's get into some of the comments, and then I do want to ask you about JT about Ohio, about how Ohio might, my home state, which has always been a swing state, the classic bellwether state, and then was deemed to have pretty much permanently have gone over to the red side, is now back in play, supposedly. Anyway, but let's talk about this. FUSO, you comment, thanks for the $1. You Goya must bow to the Israeli white supremacy, bow to your betters and give us all your tax dollars. Maybe Blue Funk, you guys, foreign affairs is a psyop, no? Like the Atlantic? 100%, that's why it's notable. FUSO, Border Patrol arrests father of sailor on long USS Lincoln deployment, support the troops. I don't know. What's this story?
But I thought somebody got like arrested or something like that. But I don't know the exact details of it. I just saw the story.
Okay. All right. Well, Macadam, how much of American prosperity do you think is based on its direct and indirect control of global affairs, often through its military? Less than you think, I think. I mean, okay, so we do have this dominance. We have unprecedented dominance over the world, all the world's oceans. We have the biggest navy that's ever been. We have, we have this incredible control of all the shipping lanes and everything, and that drives profits into American corporations. But the cost of maintaining that control is so extravagant that it can't even be counted, which is why we have a $40 trillion national debt. So you can achieve something truly remarkable, but if the cost is too high, the cost is too high, right? So I mean, if it's sort of like, is it worth it? I think we're gonna, it's gonna take smart economists to ultimately figure it all out when the age of American empire is truly over. How much did it all cost? But I suspect we're not going to find that we ended up in the black.
Well, I think it's the exorbitant privilege of having a reserve currency.
Mm-hmm.
And the military may protect that, but I think it's that. And I got to be honest, I don't know how much they even factor the money into it.
Yeah, that's true. Bretton Woods, we're just coasting on Bretton Woods.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we're connected to anything. It's not like we're on the gold standard. We just print money. I mean, like, I remember Putin made the point that he was like, America just printed $10 trillion to go to war. Okay, well, what does that mean? That's a superpower. Like, I can buy anything and put it on the battlefield out of thin air, right? That's what that means.
Yeah.
I can build any missile, build any bullet, build any whatever. Just there. It's not bad.
And so we have, but apparently we've hit that limit as we run out. Philip Blair, question: so was Charles de Gaulle standing in the way of the French people building their social safety net and building their healthcare and education and reformative justice systems? Yeah, he was. By the way, France, of many of the things that France does well, their justice system isn't really one of them. It's kind of like a shit show. In a different way than ours, but it's not really reformative in the way that like the Scandinavian model is. Let's see. The national, this is from Philip Blair, the national cattle beef herd is at record lows. By the way, Jeff Bezos keeps pushing Angus beef. Look for non-Angus beef.
What? Said it again. He keeps pushing Angus beef for non-Angus.
I mean, I like beef, but I don't know.
Because it's more expensive. So, to the commenter's point, me, Kizzy, and our son, we got up at 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning, and we went to East Glacier Park. So we went to the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, to the East Gate, and we just went all the way across the park and over Logan Pass, beautiful. And you could see that the cattle herds are probably about 40% of their normal size, because there's just no money in it. And so what the ranchers are having to do, they're having to shrink the herds to try and at least survive. And now Trump is doing this. And we
He is
stopped at it.
screwing over big time.
Do you think it'll be pushed back and he'll just like 3 days from now be like, oh yeah, my bad, I'm not doing that, like he always does?
I mean, but they did push back on him. The question basically to Trump was, how are you buying Argentine beef when your own farmers are screwed over? And Trump gets pissed off at the reporter and is like, they're beat to death in Argentina. Do you know the condition that they're in? As if he's not grasping you're screwing over American farmers. What are you doing?
He sounds like the Clintons when Bill Clinton when the arguments for NAFTA, and he was like, do you understand how poor they are down there where the maquiladoras are on the Mexico side of the U.S.-Mexico border? And I was like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. That's for the president of Mexico to worry about, not the president of the United States to worry about.
But he is the president of Argentina. He's the president of Mexico. He's the president of Iran. Like he is a global emperor. If you ask Trump, he runs the world. In his demented little mind, that's where he is. And he cares about everyone except for the people who he has a constitutional duty to serve, which is the American people. When we were at the reservation, there's this little place called St. Mary's. Gas there was $5.40 a gallon. The median income in the town is $18,000 a year. People are literally going without because there's no money.
Well, that's a good place to break and talk about Ohio, right? But before we do that, with one more comment, I don't want to put off a $10 comment. The Dead Meme Club. What's with all the anti-Semitism but no anti-Masonic social push? The first third party in America was the anti-Masonic party, so it seems like we lost our way. Okay, that's hilarious. We love you, Dead Meme Club, and thanks for the
anti-Masonic. Oh, I love
it. That's true. Yeah, that is true.
That's fascinating.
Watch out for the odd fellows. You never know. So Ohioans, right? I mean, this is the affordability crisis thing. All analysts across the political spectrum say Ohioans are absolutely furious. And they're an important state to watch, right? I mean, every state kind of like makes an argument to being like the most generically American state. But Ohio, I think, has at least as good a claim on that, moniker as any other state. When I was a kid, my hometown Dayton had a sign at the city corp limits that said, Dayton, America's most average city. And it's like, and indeed, when I was a kid, often I'd come home from school and there would be sample packages of experimental products from Procter and Gamble. Like, hey, here's this cereal, or here's this weird new shampoo made of beer or whatever. Try it out for free. And if you like it or don't like it, please fill out this postcard and drop it in the mail, because it was a test market for like if Daytonians are into it, it'll probably be okay. And they say that basically Ohioans are really pissed over the stuff that Robbie just talked about. High prices, low wages, etc. But I wonder if Democrats can. I mean, conventional wisdom would be you turn out the incumbent, and maybe that'll happen. But the Democrats are really, pissing off voters too. I just wonder if they'll just like opt out and not vote at all.
Yes, I mean that's the issue, right? Like, what, more than 50% of the public doesn't vote in the presidential election? Like, you might get like 47%.
Much less in an off year like this.
Yeah, and you think to yourself, where's everybody else? Like, because when they're arguing about like political space, they're like, oh, it's this percentage, that percentage. And it's like, no, in reality, they're like 150 million people that just aren't participating, right? And I guess my thing is kind of like,
all the people who don't even bother to register.
Because they don't see the point.
Right. I'm not sure they're wrong.
My bills are high. I don't see how my vote in the political. I remember when I was at the doctor's office one day, and this was years ago. And she was like, yeah, I don't see the point. She's like, I work 2 jobs. I don't see how voting for either political party does anything for me, my kid, my car, my house, any of those things. It has no impact or effect. So what's the point? And when you get that opinion, like at large, I mean, you get some diehards, like you might get Black saying, or we had to fight for this right to vote, so damn it, I'm going to vote. But who are you voting for, and does it matter? It's that part. People said
I don't
voting has.
feel that my vote has ever mattered. I'll be 63 in a couple of days. I've voted since I was 18. I don't think my vote's ever mattered.
So
Election.
when I was in St. Mary's, I think about this. We were just going to this little convenience store, a little cup of ramen, those little ramen cups and the styrofoam cups that you get hot water poured in.
Yeah.
$3.25 for one cup of ramen in a town whose median income is $18,000. That's unsustainable, and that's coming to all of us soon.
Sodas at 7-Eleven are $4, like a 16-ounce can of Coke. And I saw that and I was like, "Are you out your mind? Are you serious right now? Like that's insane." And again, like this kind of goes back to the whole thing of people should be angry.
It should be.
I don't get why there's not rage. Like that article that I pointed out really fits into this. It's like, okay, so you spent $10 trillion doing that, and people don't have the basic things to just get by. As you point out, Robbie, you're paying all of that money for a little container of ramen noodles in a place where the median income is less than $20,000 a year. And you can break that down in regards to, okay, well, how much is that per month? How much is that for every 2 weeks? And obviously the number is abysmally low. I mean, that's what, like $10 an hour, if not less?
Yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And to your point, I think that the rage is there. And I think that one of the two things is going to happen. Either one, a new center does form and people buy into it and vote for real meaningful change. Or number two, when they realize that nothing matters, that's where I am. That sounds like that's probably where Ted is. When the voter participation rate drops another 30%, I think that's when the political violence is going to start. I think that's when you're going to start to see blood on the streets, because people at that time are going to realize that the illusion no longer reflects reality, and that's when the rage kicks in. And when that happens, it's off to the races, because God help us.
With one caveat, though, America is very different than France in the sense that Americans consider their issues to be their own.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they externalize it and say, I am functioning within the context of the system, and this system functions in a particular way, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if they see it in those terms. They may see it purely as individualistic. It's me, my issue, my burden. I've
got to deal with it. I don't have a right to hope that. My wife has cancer, but I have to deal with it. I either shouldn't or can't expect the government to help.
Right. Despite the fact that these are social conditions, and a government, meaning people, can make a determination about what they cover. It's their choice. It's not magic. Like, it's not like the government doesn't do this as a law of God. Well, it doesn't work that way. People choose what we do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the motto is government of, for, and by the people.
Yes.
So, I mean, we do have agency here. It's the same.
But we should have agency. We should.
Well,
do we is the question.
The reason why we don't is because we have surrendered our political power and our political will. The issue is going to be, are we going to get mad enough and realize that what we gave up, we can also take back? That's the question.
Through the rugged individualist argument, though, like, is that argument so instantiated that people just see it as individuals? Like, because if this was France, how would they have behaved?
Well, I mean, Jamarl, I want to break your question down, because I think it needs a part A and a part B, right? Which is the big question: should we be leaning on the government to provide these, essential services to the American people? Whatever we say those services are, whether it's healthcare or whatever, so that's the first question. And if the answer to that question is yes, then the second question is, I have an immediate problem. Let's say affordability. And it's like, well, I know that, like, even if I join a mass movement to change everything TM, and it works, but is that going to pay my electric bill now? No. And so, part of the question is also, do you start building the Great Wall of China knowing that, you may never see it for yourself, and that you're still going to be fighting off Manchus?
Yes.
It's like, that's a lot to ask for a country that's so ahistorical that it doesn't remember things that happened 15 years ago. So, I mean, I think, and I don't honestly, I'm not terribly hopeful, but I mean, certainly big changes have happened before, so they can happen again. I just don't know how likely it is.
It has to be a match. It has to be a match. It has to be something that galvanizes.
Yeah, no, I think it's got to be a paroxysm of rage, right? It has to be where people are just mad as hell and they can't take it anymore, and they go out into the streets and things get spicy in a real way. And I don't mean no Kings rallies.
I don't get why this doesn't do it. Like, I got to be honest, I read that article and it settled in me before words even formed. And because the first thought was like, A, there's no consequence for this. B, this is a failure on a massive fucking level. And you think of all of the things that you do with $10 trillion that are just up in smoke. They could have literally taken $10 trillion, put it on the White House lawn, and just set it afire.
It would have had the same impact.
And you would have kept all of these other people alive that we killed in the process.
Right. No, and think about, and again, think about what we talked about last week. I think it bears repeating. $40 trillion in debt. We went on this wild bender. And what do we have to show for it? I mean, look at where we are, on all the indices that compare American standard of living with those of other countries. We don't do well. We have declining quality of life. We have declining life expectancy. Our infant mortality rate sucks. We young people can't buy a house. Even young people with great degrees from great colleges can't, get a job. I mean, we have nothing to show for it.
Hey, Tel Aviv looks great, and those Argentine farmers need our help, Ted. So you should really check yourself, you Nazi, and get back in line and realize this is bigger than you, sir. Listen, Israel needs your tax dollars. Tel Aviv is not going to protect itself, so you just get back into your line, going, shut up.
All right, I apologize. I'm very sorry. AIPAC, we love you. Okay, so let's talk about Iran and some foreign affairs. So today is around in a few hours, the Trump administration will announce an expansion of Operation Economic Fury, or Economic D-Day, which I guess is not the same thing as Liberation Day. All these old references. But basically, this is supposed to be a giant assault on the Iranian economy. First of all, I just want to say that, and I want to write about this week in my column, but if you basically, you've basically battle tested the Iranian economy for 47 years of sanctions, you can't really be surprised that now they're really battle hardened and tested. They're badasses now. The Iranians are like, we don't care. And if they might be soft and squishy if they'd been part of the international community for years, but they're not. So basically it's like, okay, well, we kind of recognize the United States and its allies say that we're not really having any, we're not really getting anywhere with sanctions against Iran. And besides which, we've probably used them all up. So now we're going to go after countries that trade with Iran. And I'm thinking, okay, so those would be Russia, which you're already going after, and they don't care. Okay, and then there's China, who has our ass in definitely, they own our debt. They can shut us down in a second economically. So the threats are empty, right, to them. And China buys 90% of Iran's oil. So, I mean, obviously this just smells like more Trumpian bullshit, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to undercut the difficulties and the pain that Iran is going through with the blockade.
Oh, for sure.
By the same token, as you pointed out, this is something that they've been enduring for the last 50 years, give or take a year or two. And so this is not like, oh my God, this is a European country that was plugged into the global economy with their Burger King and their McDonald's, and you cut off their Burger King and McDonald's, and people are, hungry in the streets because their Burger King and McDonald's is shut. It's not that, right? This is a different animal. And it's very possible that Iran is going to make deals. But Dr. Warwick Powell had to believe that that within the next several months, they're going to be coming out with some kind of deal with China. If you remember, they already have the railroad going to China, and Russia just came out talking about that they're going to expedite a railroad to Iran also. Mm-hmm. So this seems to be them batting down the hatches. I mean, obviously, this is not going to take place overnight, but it seems that they're preparing for the storm and the worst of that storm. The idea that you're going to say, and I suspect they decided secondary sanctions because they realize what you said is true. We've been maxing out sanctions already. What else are we going to put sanctions on? Everything and the dog has sanctions on it. Okay, well, we're going to go after China and Russia. Dog. I know, right? Not the dog. The dog. Like we sanctioned Penguin Island. It was like he put tariffs on Penguin Island. There's nothing on the island but penguins, and it's like, why are you going after the penguins?
and poor Lesotho.
Right. China is going to tell him to kick rocks. We've done this. We've had an economic war with China when we first came into office. And we were in a better position back then when we had that economic war.
True.
And we lost.
Yeah, Iran, I mean, China is too big to sanction. Forget it.
It is very difficult to sanction the relationship that we have with them. And there are things that we need from them. Like our military runs on Chinese products. Like whether it's the herbs, whether it's materials, ceramics, or whatever. We need those things.
And even stuff that we don't necessarily get from China itself, China can stop us from getting. If they decide they don't want Taiwan to sell us any chips, they can make that happen.
With AI bubble, that's the other thing. The amount of money that we've been spending on data centers and AI, it is taking up basically an overwhelming majority of the earnings, or let's say in excess in regards to our economy. Yeah. If that goes belly up, oh my God. Meaning we are playing with fire. Trump may go through with it, by the way. Meaning just because there are negative consequences doesn't necessarily mean he won't go through with it. He is desperate on the Iran issue and drowning in.
It's not going to do anything or help from his point of view.
But he still may do it. Meaning from Trump's point of view, he is in a war that he can't win, that he already knows. I don't have a military solution to this.
Exactly. Keyword, can't.
Well, from his mind, it's a can't. In his mind, it's a can't. And so it's like, how do I get out of this?
Trump has just announced a 50% tariff on Canadian agriculture products coming across the border.
Well,
we knew that was coming.
Him fighting with Carney and Carney telling him to F off, and good on Carney for doing so.
True.
And that's what those European idiots should have done. If all of those European idiots and Carney stood together, it is very difficult for the United States to turn around and sanction the world.
Solidarity is your secret weapon when you're dealing with a hegemon.
Yes, it really is. And Carney standing alone is like, I'm standing for Canada. We were attacked. Basically, Donald Trump was trying to put in a bunch of other provisions into the deal that was being made. And Carney was like, I'm not doing that. But that's wild to me, right? It's like you are already in a war with Russia and with Iran. You are trying to have a trade war right now with Iran. You've been buying bonds. You've been buying treasuries in order to keep the Japanese economy up. It still failed, and you had to effectively buy U.S. treasuries to prevent those things from hitting the market in any kind of way that was going to damage your economy. And you are now in a trade war with Canada. Canada stopped, 300,000 barrels of oil coming to the United States already. And there's apparently by September 8th, I believe it was September 8th, come up with their own package of sanctions against the U.S.
Awesome.
Canada is going to a trade war.
Canada is literally America's closest ally.
Yeah, not anymore.
Closer than the UK.
Not anymore.
The UK owes more of the US debt.
Well, it was.
Yeah. So this is what Trump is saying. On January 1st, 2027,
this is
tariffs
like stabbing your Siamese twin to death. It's not a good move.
No, the tariffs on all cars, trucks, both large and small, automotive parts, and steel will be increased at 50%. Built in the U.S., and there'll be zero tariffs. Canada will no longer be treated like a state. this guy's completely out to lunch. So
He's
he's
lost
saying
his
this
mind.
crap while he's screwing over the American rancher by importing millions of pounds of beef from Argentina.
Yep.
By the
Who's
way, I wonder
advising this
how
buffalo?
powerful. I mean, look, I think that the beef story could go either way, right? I mean, like this could be, it could fall short of being a game changer in terms of pissing off the American people or thinking that he's gone too far, or it could, it could make it. It could be like, Americans have like even people who live in cities and don't have any relatives who never, no relationship whatsoever to the soil. Really, they have and the United States is not unique this way. People in other countries are the same way. People love farmers. They love, farmers are popular. They're beloved. And those are viewed as essential businesses that need to be protected. I mean, I think if you did a poll of the American people and you did a list of, industries by sector, what industry should be most subject to isolationism and protectionist tariffs, they would say farming, because it's food, right? I mean, food is literally the most important thing. So I wonder, I mean, I don't know how this will go, but it certainly could be a big symbolic issue for Trump. It may be something that he hasn't really thought about. I know he was out like partying with Malay and came up with this idea, but like, or it may, I mean, I don't know, or it could just be like one more Trump atrocity.
But it should be a big deal for Americans.
Sure.
I mean, the American first president is making the argument that Argentinian farmers matter more.
And it's an industry based in red America too.
Yeah. Like, how does that matter? I mean, and he keeps screwing over farmers. If you remember when they had the trade war with China the first time around, and China effectively modified itself so it would hit farmers, meaning their trade war was very specific to hitting red areas that Trump needed to get elected. And so 1.4 billion people, okay, all of these American farmers that were making soybeans no longer had a market of 1.4 billion people to sell to. Okay, so what are you going to do with all those soybeans, right? In which case Trump had to pay them, had to give them money because they were materially damaged by the process that he enacted. And once again, we're doing it again. Like, this should be a big deal for the American public, whether you are a farmer or not, whether you know a farmer or not, whether you've even ever touched soil before. It should matter to you that the American president is making an argument that other cows matter more than our fat cows. In the way
American cows matter.
Yeah, all cows matter. Right. American cows matter. Right.
This is the first time, and I mean this in all sincerity, joke aside, this is the first time since we moved here in Montana in 2010 that I saw more tactical assault fluffy cows, aka buffaloes, than dairy cows.
Really?
I've never seen that before.
I do like my buffalo burgers, my bison burgers.
The buffalo herds that we saw were bigger than the domesticated than the food cows.
Now,
and
why?
That because there's no money in it. So what the ranchers are having to do to try and push up profits, they're shooting the cows and leaving the carcasses out to rot. It's a glut. And so in order to create profit, you got to create scarcity. And so that's what they're doing.
Gentlemen, we have literally a minute to talk about the main topic of the show.
I'll go away.
All right, Zelensky says no elections. Again, basically said elections right now would be a tsunami for the state that would split Ukraine apart. Well, I mean, of course, he would lose, right?
He would lose.
So that's what this is about. I mean, it's a dictatorship. I mean, no doubt.
Abraham Lincoln had elections during the Civil War.
He did.
And it's very important to have elections during wars because the public may change their mind about the horse that's in office.
True.
I mean, like the idea that it's very self-serving, right? Yeah, we can't have elections right now because, it's raining, it's bad weather. People have to let's just push that back for another couple of years. It's like, really? Like, it puts me in the mind of the guys
waiting for the Beatles reunion. Just
yeah, we have other things to do. It's like the guy lost, and the guy's like, "Well, there was something in my eye. I mean, the sun is pointing in this direction. There was a bug that flew by. I mean, obviously, I can't play under these terms." Right. It's that. It's excuse after excuse after excuse, only to stay in power because he knows that if he put himself up for an election, he would lose. It's true. He's a dictator.
I have a question for y'all. And I'll just throw this out there. It just popped in my fuzzy little noodle. There's no Manila today. So if y'all want to continue doing this show, we can, because I'm putting together the TMI supercut to run anyway.
Well, I actually have an interview.
Okay,
go to that question.
All right, we'll do the regular TMI show.
At 10. Tell Manila I said hi. Manila should join us on this show one day.
All right, we'll invite her. Okay.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, bye. Q&A. See you in 2 hours for the Monday Q&A. Have a good interview, Jamarl. Okay, everyone, stay tuned for the TMI show coming up right now. Q&A show at 12 noon, and we will see you tomorrow here on the regular DeProgram. And we're Trent tells me that we're going to be updating the outros for those of you who have newly subscribed. Thank you so much, and there's new DeProgram swag at deprogram.live. Okay, bye.